I was born in Africa, in a country called Senegal, in the town of Dakar. My father was a former...
And what makes this collection so fascinating is the fact that brick lasts forever.
What's going to be the impact of having a product that, once you put it in the wall, could last for 100 years without any sort of other maintenance?
This is the most audacious building project the University of Notre Dame has ever undertaken.
Welcome to Illinois Brick's new showroom at Loomis, our grand opening. Thank you all for coming.
My father bought what was called the old Grand Rapids Builder Supply in 1979.
Hello, welcome to another episode in the Brickman's Hall of Fame. And I've got a show for you today. And I know I always say that, but it's because it's true. I'm with Paul Belden III, and I go way back with Paul Belden III. We've been together for a lot of years. He got a kid that was green and wet behind the ears coming out of the brick plants and helped this man become a salesman. And really with the name Brickman came today, Paul had a lot to do with that. So I love brick's in my blood. You'll find out today that it's in his blood. And the passion, the extreme passion that he has. A lot of people say I'm extremely passionate about the business. I love this business. I saw the first one that had that passion and love for this business, and his name was Paul Belden III. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to tell some stories. We're going to do a little history today. We're actually going to talk about the history of a little bit about the Belden Brick Company, and then the separate, it's like a tale of two cities, right? We're going to talk a little bit about Belden Brick and Supply. Paul was the founder, what his vision was. He had one family business and created another family business, and we're going to capture some of that today. We're also going to capture some fun stuff. We're going to talk about some educational stuff. Paul is going to be an honorary member in the Brickman's Hall of Fame, and he's going to have two great parts that he plays, education and history. And Paul knows a lot, so we're going to try to grab some of that today. So I really appreciate you being with us. So Paul, thank you for being here.
Don, glad to be here.
You're a true gentleman, my friend. So one of the things we talked about a little bit, I want to touch base with you on, it's an article I've done for Masonry Magazine. It's called Baby Clay, the world's largest brick. What's your thoughts of a brick that big? You're a brick maker at heart. That's where you came from. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's neat that they could do it. Obviously, they put a lot of time and effort into doing it, but it's maybe to show the versatility of brick manufacturing. But all in all, it's sort of like a big mascot.
It is, and they put it on a truck.
Yes.
And they drive it in parades, and they drive it to all the states. That thing's covered, I think, maybe a dozen or more, maybe 15 states over the last few years. Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing. Can you imagine 116, think about that, 116 inches long, okay? That was for every year they were in business. That was their birthday celebration with this 116-inch brick. So,
yes.
So think about the awesomeness for me to even tell that story coming from brick. You know, we have trouble making a brick just utility size.
Exactly.
Now, the Belden Brick Company went into the Titan and the bigger. They make some of the biggest pieces there is. There's a few brick manufacturers, but Belden's one of them. It's not easy to make the big pieces.
It isn't.
Share a little bit about why. Why is it so hard to make some of the big pieces?
Well, especially in something like you're talking about, Don, or the sizes that Belden Brick Company makes. And we do make many large sizes. And the biggest thing is getting them dried before they're fired. So with the brick that Acme had, I believe, as I'm recalling, that thing sat around for a year or better.
It took 9 months is where they got the baby clay to even birth it, to dry it and fire it.
Yes. So, you know, you've got to make sure that the clay is free of moisture or it's going to explode. So, you know, that was a big issue with them, but they did it over time. It's a big issue with the Belden Brick Company as well. A lot of our large units take longer to dry and sometimes need a little while to sit around before they go through the kiln as well.
Now, Belden makes one of the best brick there are in the industry. I've said that hands down as far as any manufacturer. And that's just not plugging them because I'm with a Belden. I say that with everybody. But one of the things that they do is and they make all kinds of brick, right?
Yes.
But one of the things that when you talk about Plant 8, the architectural plant, it's more of a finer grind in not all their products, but a lot of them, which will give you that, you're talking about getting the moisture out and dry, that finer grind makes a much tighter body, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And most of the brick are like that there, but we make a lot of coarse ground brick as well there.
But they intentionally coarse it up to make
yes.
that, right? To give
Yes.
the different texturing and
Right.
Dartex and all the different things that they do.
Right.
The beehive kilns are kind of the way of the past, right? So you've had a lot of years, you've seen a lot of different companies, right, with beehive kilns.
Yes, I have. There's very few around anymore. In my mind, the best left are our Plant 4 in Sugar Creek, Ohio, where we make our iron spots. Still the most beautiful brick in the world.
They are.
The old method. I, of course, grew up with coal-fired kilns at the original plant in Canton when I was a kid. Went to work there when I was 16 years old. And it's a completely different world when you've got all that coal being fired and dust everywhere. And we were mighty glad OSHA was not around in those days.
That is true, and it's funny. So you and I have known each other. Do you remember when we first met? Do you remember what year it was when we first met? How far back that is?
About 1987.
And what's cool about that is that's great. That's great you remember that because that's like 32, 33 years ago. And we met in Lansing, Michigan. And I was a distribution manager at the Bigler plant. And John Bradkey was kind of looking at me to see if we wanted to move into sales. They were talking about me moving into a superintendent plant manager future
Yes.
or sales. And Bradkey really wanted me for sales, but the test was to come hang out with all you guys. And it was a distributor council meeting in Lansing. And I was one of the speakers. I had no clue what I was doing. And I was doing, remember the old projectors with the little slide
Oh,
pictures?
yes, I sure do.
They gave me a presentation
Yeah.
on sawdust firing brick with sawdust.
Yes.
And your background, as you said, was coal.
Right.
That was sawdust.
Yeah.
So I did this presentation, and it's up on that projector screen that you pull up. And I remember looking at it, and when the slide came that of what it looked like inside the kiln, what it was firing with sawdust, all of you guys, and it's a big room with maybe 40 distributors, 35, 40 distributors in a U shape. And I can remember everybody leaning up and trying to look at that little picture, that slide, and you couldn't see anything. And I can remember I'm right next to it, and I stopped my presentation. It looked like, wow, there's something on the screen that's really interesting finding you guys, right? Because it's a boring presentation. And you guys were trying to see what it looked like inside the kiln with the sawdust
Yes.
flying around, you
Yes.
know? So it was sawdust firing. So one of the few plants that did it was sawdust. Coal, the solid fuels, how different were the solid fuels firing? What did they give us versus gas? Do you remember that when you talk about the rich colors?
Well, of course, the coal-fired brick were much more colorful.
Ochras and just
Oh
rich
yes,
darks
yes, greens
and
and yellows, and it was it was Mother Nature, and they did a marvelous job. We've tried to recreate that in our plants now, and we inject coal, fine grind, into the tunnel kilns, and try to get some of that color that was so known for us to have, and we've done a pretty good job at it.
Yes. And your backup plan, though, when they just can't hit it right and are doing a match to one of those old buildings, of course, is Masonry Cosmetics, right? With our proven masonry stain.
Certainly.
Right? We got to get one of that to do the bills all the way through. So why is it for, and not specifically talking about the Belden Brick Company now, because they do a good job as far as better than anybody as far as matching run to run. That's one of your best chances, but it's not easy. But you've sold brick for a ton of different brick manufacturers when you went to the Belden Brick and
Yes.
Supply days, okay?
Yes.
The Belden Brick Supply. So tell us, why is it so difficult for the brick manufacturers to make brick and match run to run?
Well, the simple answer is you're playing with Mother Earth. And, things are not specific all the way around. So it takes a lot of time and effort. A lot of plants blend raw materials, as you probably know, to try to keep it as close as they can to that color range that you want. But it's not easy. It's not easy for sure. But overall, if you have the land, if you have the opportunity to get all of these good clays and shales, it can be done.
And think about it, so Belden does well because a lot of their colors are pre-blending. They'll huge stockpile when they can, pre-blending the raw materials to get the colors, whether it's more shale, more clay, or a combination of both.
Yes.
But now it got into the world of colors, or more colors, It's the additives. So every time you start adding additives in the body, controlling that percentage of what gets fed in as the column's made. Also, when you get into the coatings, the slurries, the clay coats, the envelopes, they've added more variables, haven't they?
Yes.
So all those extra variables, every time to repeat that, every time you add one more variable, which there's dozens, people don't realize that, how many different variables it takes to make a brick. Not just the die, not just the setup, or even the transition between the runs, right?
Right.
When they're making all these different brick,
Sure.
what you made beforehand and what you follow, that kiln's got to go by the slowest push. So a lot of people
Yes.
don't realize that either.
Right,
So,
right.
No, that's really good stuff.
Yes.
What would you say today for somebody that's coming into the industry now, a young person? You saw me as a young person coming into the industry a long time ago, learning to take under your wings for being sales. What would you say to a young person that Todd Belden's going to hire to be a dealer distributor, or maybe one of the guys at Belden's going to hire to be a salesman for a brick manufacturer?
Well, first of all, to me, you're still a young person.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind.
But Don, I think it takes a special person to be a good salesman. It takes a special person to be a good brick salesman, masonry, knowing the entire industry. So you've got to look far and wide to find somebody that is able to encompass that, and who is somebody who is able to be able to know the ins and outs, and certainly, and most important, getting to know the people in the industry. For example, with us at Belden Brick and Supply, you better know the architects, you better know the mason contractors, and I'm not saying just memorizing their name, I'm talking about personal relationships. And I think that's the most important thing in any sales organization. It's the personal relationships. You're not there just doing a job. There's a lot of guys out there that'll just do a job for you, but there's not that many that'll do the right job.
No, that's true. It was special with you. I was green from the brick plants. I knew how to make brick and pack brick and sort brick and do all those things, put coatings on brick. But I never had any sales experience. I didn't know how to sell. What do you do to go knock on the door and make cold sales, right? And do all that. And when I'd come to Grand Rapids to see you, you would say, how much time do you have? Do you remember that? And you'd
Sure.
say, jump in a car with me. And that became a regular thing. Whenever I come to see you, it would hop in, and whatever you're doing, you'd drag me along. And sometimes I'd carry samples with you, and sometimes the architect would say, no, wait a minute, that's a Belden sample in your hand. This is a Glen, but it was a Belden match job, you know what I mean?
Right.
Always get the right brick first. That's what you taught me, always right brick first.
Yes.
And think about that. I always wanted to ask you, why did you grab me and drag me along? You know, because you didn't do that with everybody. You didn't do that
No,
with
I
every
didn't.
salesman in come. I was
No.
always curious about that.
Well, number one, I liked you. I understood what you were looking for. I think I knew what your personality was like, and you were easy to get along with. And I could see that you had a determination, and you had a background in the manufacturing already. So it just worked well, Don. And I enjoy taking you out, and others at times, and go calling some architects, go out to job sites, get in the dirt, make sure you got your hard hat and all that sort of thing. You want to be with them. You want to hear what they have to say. You want to be able to help them. You want to be able to make yourself better because of comments from them. And it's just one of those things that I think is the most important. Relationships, Don.
Yes, yes. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes that gets lost, and if
Does.
you keep grabbing a
It
hold of that
does.
today.
Yes.
So what's neat was, my kids have grown up with you so many times. Logan, who's doing the videotaping, is Logan Anthony Paul.
That's right.
Foster, Paul after you, by the
right.
way. So you've been such a big part of it. But Marina tells the greatest story. She says, Dad, sometimes I'm in sales calls with PB3 and forget to come get me, pick me up at elementary school. Remember we're in Holland, Michigan on a job
I
site.
do.
And it just hit me, the principal called me on my phone.
Yes.
We had the old box phones. Remember the phones we
Yes,
took
I
with
sure
us?
do.
And so the kids, the special part with the kids.
Yeah.
So Todd came back into business back in the day. And, then you kind of took both of us, and then you kind of started a pattern where then I was with you or I was with Todd
Right.
when I'd show up and make calls or whatever. And I got to tell you, just want to share that those were special moments for me, and why I bring this up to you, just to thank you on the record, thank you, because I don't think I would be here today if it wasn't for you taking me and being a part of that, and Todd being a part of that. You talk about a dot in time, a dot in time, and saying, different branches where you can go. I really never wanted to be in the plants, even though Mingle got me focused on running Iberia, right, for those years. I mean, that's when I left you guys to go run Iberia in Ohio. I never really wanted to do the plant operation side of it, even though I was tailored for that. I really love the passion of the cells and the bonding and the people. I love the people, that's the thing. So it's kind of an interesting part of it. So thank you so much for all that. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
A long way. So let's get into the Belden Brick Company. We're going to get into, let's go back to great-granddad, right? That was kind of the founder. And tell us a little bit about that story, how it come about.
Well, we have a long legacy, and we're fortunate to know our ancestry. And to shorten it up a bit, George Belden was a civil engineer in Massachusetts area. That's where most of them came from. And he was on a government team to come out to northeastern Ohio, which was then called the Western Reserve. And they came out to do planning and plotting and mapping of that area. And when he went back east, after a few years, he said, I really loved that area. And as I understand, he came back to Ohio and settled in Cuyahoga Falls, which is near Akron, Ohio, which is right above Canton. And from there, he decided he was going to be a doctor. And he went into the medical school, and after a year decided that was not for him. So he ended up going to law school instead. And he did that, became successful. He was a U.S. district attorney. And he, when he was 57 years old, a lot of people don't know this, he was approached by a 24-year-old young lawyer that who wanted to come into business with him if he would possibly accept him. And his name was William McKinley, who, of course, was the President of the United States.
Later on, all mine.
Yes, and eventually they did have a firm, Belden and McKinley.
Oh, wow.
So we go back a long way with the McKinley family as well. But from there, his son, Henry S. Belden, actually began the Canton Press Brick Company.
And that's Grandpa, right, to you? That's your grandpa?
No, that's great-grandpa.
Oh, that's still great-grandpa.
Right.
Okay.
And he really brought it to fruition, Canton Press Brick, along with other things. They started off, as I have been told, making cones, ceramic cones, for gas streetlights.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, it came then into press brick. And about 1910, my grandfather, Paul Belden Sr., took over the company and truly brought it to what it is today. He was a marvelous man and a fantastic mentor to a lot of people. And, he has always been special to me and all of the grandchildren in my era. I'm the oldest, however. I will always have that
advantage
backing me up. But he was a great guy. And from there, he was, I want to say, he was like in his about 40. And, just took the Belden Brick Company by the back of the neck and said, let's do it. And we have. And we now have many plants, many different kinds of brick, so forth. And, of course, my father succeeded him. And it's been a wonderful experience. And it's a great family tradition.
So there's a picture of you that I saw when I first started to call on you as a sales rep, and it has you're holding Paul Belden IV with a little gift, handing it to you, and you have a gift, you're handing it to your dad, your dad has a gift, right?
Yes.
Do I have that right?
You do. It was, I remember, it was about, must have been about 1963, because I was still in Canton at that time. And the Canton Repository, which was the newspaper in those days, called and said, hey, it's Father's Day. How about a picture of the four Pauls? So anyway, they came in that day, and what it was is they had Paul Belden IV handing me a present. I'm handing my dad one, and he's handing his dad one.
Amazing.
And it had, for a headline, Father's Day in Real Depth. And it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was a great time.
And all brick people.
Yes.
All brick people.
All brick people.
That's an amazing
Yes,
story.
yes.
So let's go from Granddad then. What happened as far as let's go through the hierarchy. How did it go through this getting down to the chain of where they are today?
Of course, as I said, my grandfather, my father, and then Bill Belden, and then Bob Belden have been our CEOs. And we now have 3 young men that are doing a terrific job. My brother John's son, Bradley, who is the president.
Yes, I get to know Bradley well. Yes,
Bradley, a fine young man. And Bob has a son, Bob T.
I don't know Bob T yet personally.
Bob T is mainly down in the factories, watching what's going on down there.
Perfect.
Getting together a couple of new additions to our factories down there, and doing a great job, works with our superintendents. And then Brian Belden is the son of Bill, and he is the sales manager. So we've got all the bases covered, I think, and a lot of them still are called Belden.
They are. They really
Yes.
are. And that's amazing. So yes, I've got to know Brian really well over the years. And what a great addition. What a great team. I mean, they're really some bright stars, right? That
Yes,
have
they are.
come up all the way through.
Yes.
So I tell them a little smarter than me, but I don't want to go to their heads.
No.
But we won't do that. But yeah, no, that's a fantastic story. Now, what's neat about it, though, with the Beldens is that they weren't just one dimension. From architectural all the way to the molded, great molded brick, by the way. It's the old Hamformatic, right, that they did
Yes.
with it. And, I got to be a student of that because Iberia, when it was built, created, was supposed to be a competitor to the Belden Brick Company. But we didn't have any of the same arsenal. It was supposed to actually, for you were excited about Iberia because it was going to be the Glengarry Hanley of the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic of the Midwest.
Yes.
But they didn't put a posing machine in. They put a kind of a Hamformatic in, but it didn't have the arm and couldn't get the folds.
Right.
Like what you get with the beautiful,
Yes.
brick that you guys made.
Yes.
So think about
Yes.
the competition. It was very difficult to compete with you guys on that stage. And it wasn't always about price, was it? A lot of times it's about the quality, right? The quality and having a good product. It really
Strictly. Belden was never the cheap one on the market. So we had a lot of things going on. We did it right. That was always our goal, and I think we succeeded in most instances. And it's been a good journey.
It has been, hasn't it?
Yes.
So you were coming through. Let's talk about your story now. Let's get into a little bit about sharing your story. So talk about your story as a young man, some of the early projects you did in the plant, how you grew up, and what did you decide? Take us to the point where you decided to break away and go to Grand Rapids.
Well, when I hit 16 years of age, I started working at our Canton plant, which is no more. But it was a great old plant. It was coal-fired. We had, as I recall, 4 rectangular kilns, which you don't see much of anymore. Mm-hmm. But I was on the bottom of the ladder rung, so I was out there cleaning out the kilns and so forth. I always love to tell young people, and they're talking about how difficult a job is, one of my jobs was to go down in the flues of these old kilns with a bucket, with a rope tied around it. And I would fill it up with sand, the setting sand that had fallen through. And one time I came out of there, it was so darn hot, get some water, and the bottoms of my work shoes were melted. So, you couldn't get away with that anymore. But I loved it, and I worked there for all the way through college in the summer, and it was a great experience, and I learned a lot there, a lot about people as well as about the product. And then after I got out of college, I actually went back to the Canton plant for a year. And from there, I moved to Michigan. We needed a sales rep in that part of the country. Moved to Grand Rapids and loved it. We did a lot of work up there, had a lot to do up there. Called on a lot of architects, getting to know everybody, getting our name around, and did quite a few terrific jobs.
Was your territory strictly Michigan, though? Was it still?
No, I was actually in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and part of Ontario.
So you had a whole territory to travel and make the calls. Yep.
Right. But it was mostly Michigan for where I was located, and I got to know more people there. But I enjoyed very much the times in Wisconsin with the old brick families over there, and Minnesota as well.
Now, you could have stayed into the family business and just came back to the plants at some point.
I did, Don, and people often ask me why. I was there 17 years, and I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of acquaintances, business as well as personal. And I just thought one day, my kids were in high school, I said, I'm going to stay here. So I purchased what was called the Grand Rapids Builder Supply, which was the oldest Belden brick dealer in the nation.
It's amazing.
It was like 1898 or something in that close area. So I bought it from them, a couple of great old Hollanders, and we just marched from there up. We had a lot to do. It was fun doing it. And in the long run, of course, was able to bring in Paul Four, who managed our office. And then later, Todd came in and helped me tremendously with the sales end of it. And it's turned into to have been the best choice I ever made.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, especially for me, yes. It was the best choice you could ever make.
Yes, indeed.
It was funny to spend time with you. You guys, let's talk about Belden Brick and Supply today. It's an absolute powerhouse today. It has the majority of the share as far as Michigan goes altogether, which was always your vision and dream. And even for me calling on you, I got to learn about counties because you represented different counties with different product lines. With Glengarry, you might have had 5 or 6 or 8 counties with it, but you would say, Don, if you give me that county, and I'd say, we got a dealer over there, distributor. Yeah, but they're not representing you architectural wise. You worked it so hard always. I mean, it was never off and saying, hey, I could do so much for you over here and over there and all that stuff. And if it wasn't just residential, it was, because a lot of the dealers were residential, they didn't have the architectural representative. Later, for some of those dealers, I became their architect rep, right?
Yes.
That's how you taught me. I mean, I got to go get the specifications. A few times we're competitors in that light, in that certain county, because you might be there with another product line.
I'd forgive you.
But yes, me too. I forgive you too. But that was the fun part of trying to figure out what to do.
It was.
But you were about the territory and the vision about expansion, and you've had some pretty good size players. Lincoln Brick was a big player at that time. Baltimore Brothers, there was several others, but I mean, it just wasn't just you in town.
No.
When you bought into a town, and you've had some big. Take us through some of that thinking of how to. And you're back to relationships, I know, but think about the conquest of the state by county.
Well, it's where it should be now. And before, we probably had 8 or 10 different little dealers in the state of Michigan. And, if they sold 50,000 brick a year, it was a big year. And there were a lot of architectural jobs that would go on which they did not know how to handle.
Right.
So what I did more than anything was to go to call in architects when I saw jobs were going in these little cities, counties, and work it for them, basically. But in the long run, us to take it over totally was the thing to do. And it took a few years, but it really wasn't that difficult because we were producing. And not only that, my brother John was the sales manager, so I had him by the throat. And eventually, you know, we've got the state for the most part, other than Detroit, of course.
Detroit.
We have our own office there, Belden Brick Company. But it's been terrific because we had good people.
Yes, you do.
We
yes.
had great people calling on architects for us. Todd and myself, a litany. Tom Swaney, who used to work for Lincoln Brick, has been a huge win for us.
He is, no
And
doubt. Great guy.
He's well thought of, and people that we brought up from the beginning, like Rob. You know Rob.
Yes.
He's just been with us forever, and we also have a terrific woman that does residential sales who is amazing. And I never thought that there would be some women brick salespeople, but she's fantastic. So I think that's what happened, Don, is that we just got together this conglomerate of great salespeople that had the education, that knew how to talk to people, knew how to integrate with these architects, and again, the relationships we had. So we've been very fortunate to build ourselves into a terrific company.
You sure have.
Yeah.
And now you have a granddaughter, Emma.
I
Is
do.
in the business now. So
I do.
You talk
Emma's
about
not-
wonderful women in the
Yes,
brick industry, which we need
yes.
more and more of.
Right.
It is just fantastic.
Yes.
So I cannot be more thrilled about that.
Yeah.
It's not like all our kids have to be in the business, right?
No.
But to see Emma come on board now with Todd and all that, and,
Right.
and oh my gosh, what a family that is. That's a
Yes.
powerhouse.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so
Yes.
Rhonda is a special place for Todd too. I've been so glad to see her come in his life. You know, talk about Todd, your son.
Yes.
And she is a major player in that.
Oh, she is.
And she came from a huge advertising budget of 25 million or more.
Yeah,
You know, to come
yeah,
into that and
yeah,
do that.
with,
and so
Bissell.
now she's with us. I mean, yeah, limited budget,
Right,
But,
right, yes.
But to see her in the business, so
Yeah,
what a
she's been incredible. She, you know, I love her. She is just the kindest and most intelligent woman, and she's done it all there and done it right, and we owe her a lot.
Oh, I tell you, it's been a treat for me to watch that transition and growing up with you guys all the way through, but to see Todd so happy.
Oh,
So,
yes.
Todd, you did good. You got a good woman there. So
That's
keep
for
it going.
sure.
So,
That's for sure.
And then it's so cool, Emma. So you're going to have to work on another picture that you could do with Emma and
That's
the transaction
true.
of the gifts.
We'll
on
have to
Father's
do
Day,
that.
so.
Right.
Yeah, you have to
right.
put that together all the way through.
Yeah,
so.
well, Emma right now is just getting her feet wet, but she's doing a great job, Todd tells me, and she's involved, and that's the good part.
It is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I'm so
Right.
excited about that.
Right.
So
Right.
for me, you know, for the kids to be a part of the business and Peggy to be part of the business for me, for Masonry Cosmetics,
Sure.
it's special because it's not like you're at work and then you're not with the family. It's sometimes it overlaps too much, I guess. But
Yes.
But it is fun to have them a part of it. It's what makes a family business.
It does. It does, Don.
Let's talk a little bit about. You have a special relationship with Rick Connor.
Yes.
So Rick Connor, when I first found out that one of the things you taught me about calling on architects, which is interesting, you called me and you said, I got to come to the hospital to see you because I needed to make some sales calls for you while you're in the hospital. You had a couple blood clots in your legs.
Oh, I remember
And you
that.
had to go.
Yes.
So I come in the hospital to see you, and I had to make 3 calls for you. And one of the calls he had is I had to take Belden brick in. I can never forget that the architect, it was a match job. It was Belden.
Yeah.
Beaver Blend or something like that. And the architect said to me, but you're the Glengarry guy. And I said, I'm helping out Paul. And he was like, oh, that's really neat and all that. So we did that. The other one was a school. It was Rosewoods on a school from Glengarry. It was on my brick, Rosewoods.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, I'll take a couple Rosewood samples out to the architect. And you said, no, you've got to take 3 brick. And I want you to take this, and maybe it was a Robinson or Denver brick, and I want you to take a Belden, sand mold or whatever. I can't think which one it is. But you wanted me to take him out and show him 3 because you got to give him a chance to work on the 3. I said, but it's a rosewood, it's a paper cut, it's a rosewood, just trust me, Don. So I take it out there, we take the samples, and I put the rosewood up, and he stands way back about 20, 25 feet, and it's a mini board. It doesn't have mortar in it, whatever, and you put it against a brick that's mortar. He says, it's not quite there. And I remember holding the sample. I looked at him, I looked at the thing, and I said, wait a minute, that's the brick. It's really, really close. No, so I put the other one up, and I put the other one up. Maybe it was a Princeton's blend he had me take out for Belden. And I put the Princeton's blend, and he would study it, and then he'd come in close and go back. And it took about 15 minutes for him to decide rosewood was ready to go. But you knew that ahead of time with it. So I'm talking to you, and I said, so how you doing? So you got the blood clots, how you doing? He says, you're up on the ladder staining brick with Rick Connor.
I was.
That's how I found out.
He owes me.
Yeah, he's doing a side job, right? He's doing
Right.
a side job, trying to help me out while he was in town for me, trying to do the job. So I had to slap Rick Connor up about that.
Yes.
But yeah, so just some of the history, a little bit about with you and Rick Connor. Why don't you share if you have something, a story or something you want to share with Rick?
Well, I mean, all I know is that he did a lot for us, and he was a smart guy. If we had any problems, he was always there to take care of them for us, and enjoyed him very much.
We've gone back and looked at some of those jobs, and we made case studies out of those, Paul. Some
Have
of your
you?
jobs all
Really?
those years ago,
Yes.
24, 27 years ago.
Right.
They're case studies now.
Yeah.
So we're doing that in a whole other country, across 10 states.
Fabulous.
Let's take a break. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. How you feel? Hey, we're back with Paul Belden III. And Paul, I want to touch a little bit about the kids. So let's talk about, tell us a little bit about PB4.
Well, Paul, very smart young man. He went to school at Loyola University in New Orleans. The reason being that Paul's handicapped, as you know. Mm-hmm. He's in a wheelchair, and he wanted to get out of the snow. So we took a trip one spring, went down south looking at different universities that seemed to be right for him, and he fell in love with Loyola. And from there, after 4 years of school, he did a great job down there. He came back and went to work for us, and that was roughly when I had bought the business. And he ended up coming in the office and working with Wally Van Slooten, who was the one leftover from the company that I bought, and it was not easy. And he put all that back together and helped me with finding some new people as well.
We'll get a team together, yeah.
Right. And he had several young men that worked for him. He called them Bud Boys. They would come in and help him get dressed and that sort of thing. And many of them came to work for us and did wonderful jobs. And many of his, by the way, as an aside, many of his Bud Boys had gone on to be lawyers, doctors, priests, ministers.
Wow.
And it's amazing the influence he had on all these young men, and he still does today. And I'm very, very proud of him and the way he's handled himself. He does not work in the office anymore. He can't do it. But he's always there in spirit. And a lot of the people that are there worked with him for a while. And it's been a great experience. He's a fine young man.
Yes, he really is. And Paul IV, he's the oldest, right?
He's the oldest.
And then we had a real loss with Kevin. Is Kevin the next?
Kevin was our middle son. He a brilliant kid. He went to Catholic University in Washington, D.C., got a master's degree at Notre Dame, and ended up going to New York and working for several publishing companies. He ended up...
He loved the city, didn't he?
He loved New York. Loved it. But he ended up as vice president of Condé Nast Corporation,
wow,
which is one of the biggest in the world. And he was everywhere, all over the world, and just a terrific kid, and smart as could be, and had a great rapport with people. But he was born with a heart defect, and we knew that as soon as he was born. And it seemed to be taking care of itself. You know, we would constantly go to the doctor every year, make sure everything was working properly. And he ended up having a pacemaker put in New York. And 2 months maybe after that happened, he had told his secretary to give me an hour. I got some stuff I got to do here, knock on the door. And she knocked on the door and opened the door, and he had had a heart attack and was like he was asleep at his desk. So it was a crushing blow to lose a child.
No doubt.
As people who have know, there's nothing like it. But he was a great kid, and I was so lucky to have him in my life for
Absolutely.
that amount of time. And Paul and Kevin and Todd were 3 great, wonderful sons. And you know, and of course we still have that relationship today. And we talk of Kevin often.
Nice.
And he was a great young man.
He was, and it's pay tribute. I don't go to many funerals, but that was one funeral that I was there with you guys on, and just a sad day to have that, especially being so young. I mean, what a painful thing all the way through. But yeah, then now Todd, who's run the business now. You have Todd.
You got Todd.
And he's doing a great job with taking it to the next level, right?
He has taken it to the next level. There's no doubt about it. He himself is a fantastic worker. And again, the people that we have now working for us are special. And we just got a smooth, well-run organization.
You did amazing time with Todd Weston. You had Todd Weston working for you, residential for all those.
Oh, yes.
But he had an architectural flair with the shapes, because most of his projects had the shapes, and he'd help the Masons with it, and they loved him.
Oh,
the Masons absolutely loved him.
They did, and he was fantastic with the builders. And he would show them, look, if you do this to your house, these shapes, it's going to help you sell. And they listened to him. And he was a fabulous residential guy. He knew all the home builders. They all knew him. And sold millions of brick. Millions of brick.
He has. And so talk a little bit about the parade of homes. Remember the day, that's kind of gone. You remember the spec home and all that?
Right.
But a parade of home, we'd want to get that parade of home, because once you got that, people used to buy brick off brick homes.
Yes.
It's changed today. They don't do that like they did back in the day.
No, it's very different today, Don. I don't have to tell you that brick production in the nation is about half what it was. And, you know, we used to stock just millions of brick for homes turning over. We don't anymore. We have some, of course, but it's not like that anymore. And there's a lot more stone used, real as well as artificial. And architecture itself, residential architecture, has changed.
It has.
You know, that it doesn't always appeal to it. However, we have a lot of house jobs going at all times that are millions of dollars. We've got some homes that are just beautiful. So they're still doing it. It's just not as common as it was anymore. But you make up for that with other things. Architecturally, still brick schools. Brick schools are still out there. They're going. The state of Michigan has done a pretty good job in passing bond issues. So, you know, it's been a good thing.
What do you think about today? So you and I, we're brickers, okay? We come up with the brick industry. We make at the plants all different kind of sizes and textures and shapes and all the kind of things to give everybody so many options. And there's so many options.
Yes.
Do you know what it's come down to today in a lot of areas? That they just come in to buy, they call it a painter brick. And they come in to buy the brick, and then they pick the paint color they want on the brick. They're putting up a new house, brand new construction, and painting it right after the brick are laid.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, naturally, the usual thing to say is, why do you want to paint brick? You're going to have to paint it again. But it does happen. I see it happen as well. A friend of mine put up a year or two ago a painter. We got him some brick, something that we could get inexpensive, put it up. My God, the house is gorgeous. And I said, "You're not going to paint that, are you?" He said, "Yeah, I'm going to." And he did. And I drive through that subdivision today because it's not too far from where I live. And I look at it and go, why in the world would you do that? But I don't think it's terribly common, Don. I don't see it.
It's in the millions, and it might be $1 billion market now. It's everywhere, all over the Midwest, everywhere I travel, especially in the South. They're painting like mad. And I said, you're trapping moisture. Remember, the brick takes a while to dry out. You're trapping that moisture. About that. But the minute they put that paint on, the value changed because brick age, maintenance free, they age. But now if we're trapping moisture and water in the freestyle markets, now the brick could spall. Now brick could spall without being painted, but that doesn't help it. And then they're putting primers now. They're putting a primer. So what do you do when you go to remove the paint and all these different textures? They're not thinking about it as a different absorption. I understand protect wood from rotting, protect metal from rusting. We don't need to protect the brick.
Right.
And that's what they're doing.
Yes, they are. And it's a shame. And like you say, when you have to take it off, if you sandblast it or even chemicals, you take away that wonderful weathering quality of the brick. So it's in the long run not the thing to do.
Well, think about everybody's conscious about the environment, the groundwater and everything else. You're using chemicals to remove it, which is not always easy to get it out with chemicals anyhow. So usually some chemicals and some pressure. They do a lot of repainting brick, and they call it like the 80% rule. This is a few people. They call it the 80% rule, meaning you can't get 100% off, so they get 80% off. So the 20% of paint that's going to be failing, because it's going to.
Sure.
Now we're repainting over failing paints.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that they don't understand. I think no one's. It's really it's in the end thing now. It's a trend that is so strong, and a lot of it's because a lot of people are promoting painting. I understand if you're painting interior brick, but once you paint it, you're committed to that. Brick are not going to look natural like brick and wall.
Right.
It's a wall. It's a masonry wall. It's a brick and mortar wall. It's not just a brick wall. There are lines and patterns and shapes and mortar joints that show up that give you the degree of what kind of transition you want with that.
Sure.
There's a lot to that. But they're not thinking about that anymore. Once they paint it, they blanket it, right? They blanket the whole thing. So we're working on trying to educate the market more with that. So I'm a small voice that's speaking out with that, but I'm really trying to deal with the painting industry that, exterior brick should not be painted. It's made to be, we put coatings on brick, but we're fired in, they're vitrified.
Yes.
So I'm really trying to fight that fight all the way through. I understand if someone wants to change the color of brick, of an old outdated 50s, 60s, 70s home that they want to do and they don't like the look of it, or something that someone did not ever color correct, it's got a mess.
Sure.
And we can come help them color enhance it, but we can do it the right way.
Yes.
And that's as long as there's absorption, we can do it the right way. So,
Right.
All right, so we're going to be wrapping up with you pretty quick. I want to do anything as far as any helpful tips you want to share about anything, about masonry, about cells, any helpful tips that you want to share.
Well, I think the most important thing is in masonry is getting the wall built properly. So it's all about education. We're very lucky, I think, in Michigan. We've got terrific mason contractors, but they have to be vigilant in following through with all the good masonry practices on the wall. And, we don't have too many problems these days. But I think that's because they do such a vigilant job.
Very, very good.
And that's the most important thing. If you have a wall failing, it hurts you for years. The only other thing is, I believe that it's education, so that we can tell architects, we can tell home builders all of the good qualities of this wonderful material that's been around forever. And a lot of times they're very swayed by what's popular, what's in the magazine here, there.
Yes.
But, we've got the material today. The BIA's got the material to show what needs to be done and what some of the beautiful homes that are still being built with brick. So that's important, the education part of it, Don. And I think if those things were done properly and thoroughly, we have a great future.
We do, and when you say the BIA, you're thinking of the Brick Industry Association, and you're thinking about the tech notes. They have so many tech notes that
Yes.
even some architects don't know today. We got to remind them that those are available,
Right.
to do all the way through.
Exactly.
Todd Belden went to the University of Notre Dame.
Yes.
He's one of, you know how many Beldens went to the University of Notre Dame over the last bunch of years?
24.
24.
Was the last time Bob and I counted, so I think it's 24. Maybe another one snuck in there, but it's right in that category.
That's just amazing.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's
That's
marvelous.
just the University of Notre Dame. So that's
Yeah.
we're passionate.
Long legacy and a lot of brick,
a lot of brick, a lot of Belden brick.
all Belden brick.
There's a few other little.
No, I don't think
obvious.
so. Nah.
He's going to say no today. No, they've done just a fantastic job. That's been a great relationship all the way through.
It has.
Speaking of relationships, let's talk just a minute about Ray Staub, who is someone special to both of us. Tell us a
Yes.
little about Ray Staub.
Ray Staub was my first boss.
I did not know that.
Yes, he was the yard foreman at the Canton plant when I was 16.
I didn't know that.
And I went out there, and here's this kid, and his last name is Belden, and I'm wondering, gosh, I hope this goes okay. Well, as I said earlier, he threw me in with all of the tough jobs, and we had a wonderful relationship. Ray was a smart, intelligent guy.
He was.
And became close friends with he and his family for many, many years. I miss him terribly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me too. Ray
Yeah.
Staub.
yeah. So he went from the Canton plant to sales, and he had Ohio, and he was there a long, long time. And of course, after a while, he became the sales manager. And he left after a few years to go to Glengarry. Then he left Glengarry and went to
Where did he go? He went to
Iowa.
I know he was Sioux City Brick.
Sioux City.
Brick.
I'm sorry. Sioux City, good friends of ours, by the way. And he went there.
And then Watsontown Brick.
Watsontown.
Brampton.
Yes.
What a life, right?
I know.
He covered it all.
Yeah. And he loved the brick industry. I remember talking to him when he was 80. And said, Ray, why don't you play a little more golf? Well, I do play golf and I sell brick. So,
That he does both.
yeah. So that's what I remember Ray. But he was a great guy and a very good friend. And we did a lot of social things together as well. He's a missed guy in the industry.
He comes to me, he says, Donnie says, I love you dearly, but he says, you really have to golf more because, you just golf on special golf outings.
Right,
But
right.
I had hit a tree ahead of us, and it flew, and Ray ducked, and it flew over his head, almost took him out. And he got in the car, and he says, Donnie, I love you dearly, but you gotta golf more. You gotta get better at this game. So I was thinking golf.
Yeah, yeah.
I love golf, but I just don't play it much. And
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
that good at either.
I don't either.
So
I fish.
yes, you do. Yes, you do. I'm one of the few that you took fishing that we didn't get to catch a fish that day. You
We
did
did
the air
not?
thing and all that. Yeah, it's one of the river was high. The water was really high. It was mucky, and we took it out for a couple hours. And you said it's just probably not a good day, or whatever. But I never seen anybody like you that had all the different combinations. You had spinners going, and you had a bobber out there, and you had all. I never seen anybody put air. You actually shot air in a worm
Yeah.
to get it to float, right? Is that what it was? Is that
yeah,
what?
yeah.
I've never seen that again since that or whatever, but you definitely know how to fish.
Secret.
I'm sorry, I just let that go. We have to have Logan cut that out, edit that out. So, anything else you want to share as we're closing? Anything you got?
Nothing specific done other than just keep with it. You've got the world's best product to sell. Know your market. Know it well. Surround yourself with good people. It's all you need in any business.
Beautiful. Very kind words. Paul Belden III, everybody. Thank you for watching. True. I'm with Paul Belden III, and I go way back with Paul Belden III. We've been together for a lot of years. He got a kid that was green and wet behind the ears coming out of the brick plants and helped this man become a salesman. And really with the name Brickman came today, Paul had a lot to do with that. So I love brick, brick's in my blood. You'll find out today that it's in his blood. and the passion, the extreme passion that he has. A lot of people said I'm extremely passionate about the business, I love this business. I saw the first one that had that passion and love for this business, and his name was Paul Belden III. So
Father bought what was called the old Grand Rapids Builder Supply in 1979, and he was at the time he was considering going back to Ohio to work at Belden Brick Company, and decided not to leave West Michigan, which I thank him for. And he bought the local distributor back then. And this had been actually a brickyard since 1904, and I think was one of the oldest Belden brick dealers in the country at the time.
I always love to tell young people, and they're talking about how difficult a job is. One of my jobs was to go down in the flues of these old kilns with a bucket, with a rope tied around it. And I would fill it up with sand, the setting sand that had fallen through. And one time I came out of there, it was so darn hot, to get some water, and the bottoms of my work shoes were melted. So, you couldn't get away with that anymore. But I loved it, and